Should I start? Where's everyone? Some people are still outside. Should I wait for them to come in? Yeah, let's wait for them to come in because some are still checked by the security there.
You might not have heard about us.
Could everyone please sit down, please? We're going to start imminently. I'll take a seat. You want to sit in the middle?
You might not have heard about us.
Because we feel we have no voice.
We're just ordinary people.
Labeled as refugees, asylum seekers, migrants all across the UK.
But we think it's time now for us to speak out.
And be our own ambassadors.
We are here to tell you why no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark.
We are the Voices Network.
It is not easy to arrive in a new country.
To survive on £5 a day.
To be looked after for and faith education.
To be separated from the people we love.
Try and start all over again.
In an unfamiliar land.
So we are raising our voices.
To show that really we are just like you.
We want to work and give back.
To make change. To learn.
And be free.
Our stories should be heard and not told for us.
We speak as experts by experience. Why not work with us?
When you're designing your policies.
Shaping your new stories.
And improving your services.
We are supported by the British Red Cross, but we do not represent any organizations.
We are independent.
We control our identity and our anonymity.
We are the Voices ambassadors.
We are ready.
Are you?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sanctuary in the Senedd 2023. My name is Trevor, and I'm going to be the host for today. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all for taking your time out to come and traveling from near and far to hear our speakers as they'll be talking about their lived experiences, and for showing support and making positive changes for refugees and people seeking sanctuary in Wales. Today we have brought you together to talk about sanctuary, and who better to hear it from than those of us who have experienced seeking sanctuary ourselves. Lived experience is at the heart of today's, and with that I would like to introduce our first speakers who opened the event, and I'd like to call Salah Russell.
Bore pawb a croeso, Bacherhat and Sachawan. Welcome to the Sanctuary Senedd today. First of all, just housekeeping reminder. There will be photographs taken all throughout the day. So there is a photographer. Please, if you don't want your photo to be taken, let the photographer know. We want you to participate in today's event, so please share your thoughts about the event by using the hashtag Sanctuary Senedd Cymru 2023. I will repeat that. The hashtag is Sanctuary Senedd Cymru 23. As chair of the Welsh Refugee Coalition, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all. And thanks to AM Jenny Rathbone for sponsoring this event today. And a big thanks to Minister Jane Hutt for her commitment to make Wales a nation of sanctuary. It makes me proud to live in Wales and see Wales often leading the way in the UK with the support for refugees. A big diolch yn fawr to the participants for their effort in organizing the program and for their contribution today. Most of the participants have lived experience of seeking sanctuary. Here we have the expert, and they are playing a significant role in reigniting the refugee dialogue in Wales. We need more of this, more refugee empowerment, and more participation in policy and governance. Let's make sure that the participant is timely and meaningful. We should never be afterthoughts. Have you, and every day we stand in solidarity with our fellow human beings who are suffering in Gaza, Yemen, Sudan, Afghanistan, Eritrea, Ukraine, Libya, Congo, and the list goes on. Let's stand in solidarity also with those who are being displaced due to climate change. We can feel so hopeless and overwhelmed, and felt by many of us here on a personal level. Rebuilding our lives in Wales can be tough, especially when we have responsibilities back in home countries. We may be physically here, but often our mind and hearts are back home with our families and communities. Anyhow, we must carry on. And we are here today and to try to bring about changes in our lives in Wales. We are facing so many challenges. The so-called Illegal Migration Act and its impact is historically horrific. The hostile environment and persistent politicization of refugees can be so tiring, but we won't give up. We hope that can influence changes in Wales in those areas that are devolved at least. We would like to thank the Welsh Government, local authorities, other public and third sector for their tireless effort in supporting refugees. However, I think it's important to acknowledge and thank the refugees. Thank the refugee communities themselves who are carrying the weight of their fellow community members and who do so much of unseen work of supporting each other in every difficult circumstances. Today, you will be hearing from a range of lived experience, experts on the challenges around integration, especially around housing, education, transport, and employment. Please listen actively and think practically about the subject covered today and how Wales can truly become a nation of sanctuary, as well as an anti-racist society in both government and public life. Diolch o galon. Thank you very much for listening. Zor spas. Yes, I think I did mention photos will be taken throughout the day. So please, if you don't want your photo to be taken, let a photographer know.
I'd like now to welcome Funmi, where she's a voice ambassador.
Borida, Ekaro, Sabah Ayal Kayer, Benos Diaz, Bonjour, Bayanin Bas, good morning, Kreso, Diokombao Ayan Andoid, Fumilayo Dwi, good morning, welcome everyone. We are so happy that you are here today. My name is Fumilayo. Thank you all for coming. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to today's event, Sanctuary in the Senedd 2023. It feels like yesterday when I was standing here. I'm so honored, delighted, and excited to be here today. And I believe every one of you share in the same excitement. It's so good to see so many familiar faces, and that's why I'm confident that you are all rooting for me, and I'm standing here. We cannot stop thanking you all for being here today. You took time out of your busy schedule to be here today. To attend this event, you're all amazing. Thank you once again. That means a lot to everyone seeking sanctuary. Like I always tell people, you are the best. Thank you all for all you do to support people seeking sanctuary. In my country, there's always a saying that says, give honor to whom honor is due. So we'd like to thank and acknowledge the presence of Senedd Williams and also Jenny Radboth and Jane Ott in absentia, all MS present here today, all civil servants, everyone with lived experience. You're actually the reason why we are here today. There will be no sanctuary in the Senedd because of you. So thank you all for being here and also happy to share your lived experience with us. We're all happy here today to celebrate sanctuary in the Senedd. It is all about bringing amazing people together with lived experience who has found sanctuary in Wales and are proud to call Wales their home. These events provide a platform for expats by experience, refugees and asylum seekers to share their unique stories of rescue and how they've built their lives in Wales. It also explores how together we can make Wales a nation of sanctuary. You'll be listening to many amazing stories and voices of these experts by experience who are ready to amplify their voices, share with us their unique experiences in different subjects such as housing, education, and employment. I promise you there will be no dull moment. You will not regret being here today. Please sit back and enjoy all that we have lined up for you. You will thank me later. So once again, Diolch Vawayan and Doid.
Thank you, Salah and Funmi, for highlighting the crucial role Wales plays in supporting sanctuary seekers. We will now start by exploring pressing issues around access to housing. I would like to invite our lived experience experts to the stage. Naftali Ujala. Fortunately, he's not here. Saeed Abdullah. Oh, okay. As well as member of the Senedd, Jenny Rathbone. And Gareth Lynn Montes from the Welsh Refugee Council. Andrea Cleaver is supposed to be coming.
It's me?
Yes. You're supposed to be coming and doing the...
Okay, yeah, sure. Great. Thank you, Trevor.
Okay, welcome.
Can I check? Great, these are working. So we decided to have a housing panel today, primarily because it's one of the most pressing issues affecting both sanctuary seekers and refugees in Wales and across the UK. In Wales also, there is some remit and some power from our devolved government to act on it. So I'm delighted that we have Jenny Rathbone, MS for Cardiff Central, but also the Housing Minister as well. And we've got Saeed with us as our Move On caseworker, and we have Gareth with us as our Housing Policy and Research Lead. And so I'm going to start with the asylum system. The Nationality and Borders Act 2022 has significantly changed how the UK asylum and immigration system works. One of the most distinct changes is the compulsory dispersal of every sanctuary seeker from the usual areas of Cardiff, Swansea, Newport and Wrexham to all local authorities in Wales. So I'm going to start with Gareth. What do you see as the housing challenges and opportunities from this dispersal policy?
Well, we are going into uncharted territory in many ways. We are going to see all local authorities all across Wales taking in asylum seekers, which is something that they've not done before. And there are challenges associated with that. The asylum system, as we all know here, is incredibly complex, sometimes on purpose, I'd argue. So it's local authority staff are going to be having to support people in ways that they've not done before, which is a major challenge. We do have also potential issues around integration in local authorities that don't have experiences of taking in asylum seekers before, but more worryingly perhaps is the lack of support for them. And I mean that in terms of support networks by existing communities that already exist there who will be able to integrate them, who will be able to share their experience of having gone through the same process beforehand, but also for services to support them. I know that services such as the Welsh Refugee Council, but a lot of other organisations that are here present today, we've made our services to match the previous dispersal areas around Cardiff, Newport, Wrexham and Swansea, whereas now we're going to have to find ways to support people all across the rest of Wales. So it's really important that these services that are there to give people the important legal advice, which is fundamental, are there to support them. Obviously, legal advice, as some of you already know and stress about often for very good reasons. We know that legal aid is not something that is really accessible in parts of Wales, so that is going to be another challenge that we have to consider. But I do want to be optimistic about this. I want to think that there are opportunities involved with widening of dispersal. I like to think that Wales is a very welcoming country, and I want to see people make a success of their integration elsewhere in Wales. We know that Wales can be a nation of sanctuary. We know that Wales can be a welcoming nation. If it wasn't for it, I think a really way that this is shown is the fact that every town in South Wales will claim to have the best ice cream parlours. And as far as I know, ice cream was not invented in Wales, so something was done well in terms of integration there. So I think it is uncharted territory, which makes it which brings a lot of challenges. We know that accommodation is going to be difficult. We know how much local authorities all across Wales are struggling to find accommodation, and they're going to have to find more accommodation to move people in through dispersal. But there are opportunities, and I do want to see warm welcomes from communities all across Wales, which I'm sure will be able to do it.
Thank you, Gareth. And Jenny, is it okay if I pass over to you? Is there anything we've missed in terms of the housing challenges and opportunities from widening of dispersal in Wales?
I mean, clearly there is a housing crisis, full stop, for everybody, not just asylum seekers and refugees, and that makes it very, very difficult for local authorities to accommodate everybody. We simply don't have the money to build more social housing, tomorrow. That may change if there's a change of government in London, but for the time being, that is the situation we face. Nevertheless, councils like Cardiff have a policy of housing first. So for anybody who's a refugee, they are encompassed by that. We do not want people sleeping on the streets. But it does make it very, very difficult for people to get a home of their own that they feel is a permanent place for them immediately, because so many other people are also waiting, and people with children tend to get priority for reasons that we all understand. So we do need to think of ways in which we can innovate. I know that Cardiff Council is taking emergency powers to build temporary accommodation in Grangetown on a patch of land that they own, because we simply don't have enough places to accommodate people here. So I think the dispersal policy is challenging, as has been said by Gareth, but we also have to embrace the change. But we have to recognise that the sort of prejudice that we faced in Cardiff, say 10, 15 years ago, we're going to experience in other communities where people find it difficult to accommodate to change. But we simply can't have housing associations in rural parts of Wales thinking it's a good time to be selling off housing that becomes vacant when it could be offered to somebody who wants to go and live in a rural area. Because obviously people who are arriving from other countries are both coming from urban and rural communities, and it very much depends on what people's interests are, what are the skills they've got, and where they think they would like to live. And we need to be talking to people about the opportunities of living in rural communities, because for many people, it's brilliant. Many people who have choices choose to go and live in rural areas. But we obviously need to fix the public transport system so that everybody can get around. So I think those are some of the challenges that we face, but we need to ensure that homes are not being left empty. The Welsh Government has a policy of ensuring that homes are not left empty, and that if somebody doesn't have the money to make it fit for living in again, then the Welsh Government will find the money to repurpose that place so it can be lived in by somebody. Equally, there are leasehold schemes that the government will take on if landlords are simply not able to repair their homes to bring them up to a modern standard. We can take them on for at least 7 years. So they don't lose the house, but at least then it is being lived in by somebody else. Just to say that I'm not a member of the government, I'm not the Housing Minister, that's Julie James, but I know Julie James is very, very focused on the housing crisis. I am, however, a member of, I chair the Equality and Social Justice Committee, along with people like Senedd Williams. It is our job to ensure that, as far as possible, we are delivering a more equal society, but it's very hard in the current crisis. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. So my next question is around when a refugee is granted status, they have just 28 days to move out of Home Office accommodation and to find a new home. So I'm going to ask Saeed, who is our Move On caseworker at the Welsh Refugee Council, do you think the 28-day Move On period is enough for newly granted refugees to find somewhere to live?
Actually, thank you, Andrea. In the beginning, we say a little bit complicated. Some cases they receive after a month, which is a very few, but majority they receive just 1 week or a couple of days before they be informed, or maybe they're missing the letter or something. But if you talk about in general 28 days, no, it's not enough. If we mention the all challenges they face, they cannot find a private house, the very difficult term of condition when you go to the private sector, the presenting homeless with the council, the procedure is very hard, actually is humiliated for some people. So imagine a person just was receiving £47 a week, is not enough for his basic need, and suddenly saw himself granted with no money, nothing, and the people tell him, give me a bank statement for 3 months, or give me guarantor or whatever, he has nothing. So of course that 28 days will never be enough, maybe more. So there is many other solutions, and unfortunately it's not exist. According to experience we do as a caseworker, I saw some cases actually people come crying in our office. They have no money, they don't know what to do, landlord refused them, and there is something else. Now, even the housing benefit refused to give the support money for people without BRP. You know, some people they granted, the Home Office has this in the BRP 8, that's also an issue now. So that's always become challenges. We say 28 days is not enough. No, at all is not enough, and should be a solution to be accommodate somewhere or temporary immediately after be granted, to in case avoid these people to like be humiliated more.
Thank you, Saeed. So essentially you've said that the 28 days is normally less because people might not receive their BRP card, and organisations like Housing Options are not allowing those referrals to come through until that BRP card arrives. You've also mentioned that some landlords request bank statements in advance and sometimes 3 months or longer rent in advance, which if you're coming off asylum support, you've got no savings. So I'm going to quickly go to Gareth. Is there any other barriers for refugees accessing housing that we need to be aware of?
Well, I'd say that especially a lot of the refugees that we support within our Move On services are going to be single males in their 20s and 30s. So because of that, they're not going to have any kind of priority when it comes to local authority housing allocations. So we'll be placed in temporary accommodation for long times. And a lot of that is caused by the housing crisis that we're currently in, that we've all acknowledged so far. But yeah, it's also competing at a disadvantage because it's not knowing how the systems work. And I think that's just another reflection to put on if the 28-day move-on period is enough. Just imagine, like, any of us are placed in a situation where we are put in a country that we don't know, in a language that isn't our own. How do we think we would manage to find accommodation? And it's not just accommodation, it's like setting up benefits, it's finding employment, it's getting your life really in order. Like, and I think all of us would struggle in that situation. So I think not knowing the systems is a problem, and that is a barrier in and of itself. If you don't know where to look, even look for like how to move into a private rental accommodation. I know for us, we can think, oh, it's very simple, just go on your phone and there's all these pages, but that's something that not everyone knows. And then it's those relationships with how you move into an accommodation. You also have some misconceptions among private landlords, thinking, oh, it's a refugee, I can't house him because they won't be able to access benefits or they won't be able to access employment, whereas they can. So it's there is a lot of misconceptions that go around among communities, among landlords, among among local authorities when they're doing the housing allocations, which further impact this. And yeah, I'd say that one of those biggest issues is, especially when accessing the private rented sector, is the lack of UK-based guarantors, which most landlords are now demanded as starters, and having to pay several months' rent in advance. And I know that's affecting all of us. I have friends at my age who are trying to rent at the moment who are getting asked six rent months in advance. But for newly granted refugees who've not had the right to work beforehand, who've been living on £47 a week, how on earth are they going to do it?
Okay, thank you. And just to touch on something that I know people with lived experience raise quite a lot, to what extent do you think discrimination plays a part in accessing housing?
It does play a part. It does play a part, and I know that from conversations with our own caseworkers, they say that they give me testimonies of the people they've supported saying, "Oh, the landlord didn't want to rent to me because I think he doesn't like me because I'm a refugee." And we've heard, like, obviously not going to name anyone, but we heard from landlords who we worked with who said, "Oh, I once had a tenant from Egypt, so I don't want to, and he wasn't good, so I don't want to house anyone from the Middle East anymore." Which, I mean, if you compare that, I'm sure that they've had bad tenants from Swansea or from Clonechley, and they've never said, "Oh, I never want to house anyone from Swansea." So I think that does play. I think that does play a hand into it. I like to think that they are minimal cases. I like to think that they are it's not common practice, but sadly we know that it does happen every now and again.
Thank you, Gareth. And so one of the headlines that you might have seen in the newspapers recently or over the last few months is that the UK government is trying to clear the backlog from the asylum system, and they're making some movement and progress with that. But on the flip side, there's also a devastating impact on housing because it also leads to evictions. So I'm going to go to Saeed, who is our Move On caseworker, to talk a little bit about the number of evictions that are happening right now.
Actually, the last update I has got from yesterday, the presenting homeless, especially among refugees, increased 350%. So there's a large list of people who has been granted, and these people, they are receiving eviction letters, some of them in 1 week, some of them in a month. So every day in our office, we receive a people with eviction letter, so immediately we send them to the, so I could say a huge number of the person. The problem is when these all people doesn't have access to housing from private especially, yeah, they were gonna present on a homeless, so with the eviction letter, that's increased every day. There is something else like a question, like if I've asked anybody, you know, each community and culture is different from each other. If I go see a person from my community, he's in the street, I will take him for my house one night, like I give him a hot meal on one night one. But it does consider that person is not homeless? For my perspective, no, he's still homeless. But if you ask the council, they said no, he has a friend support him. So that number is increased every day. Maybe I cannot say the number exactly eviction, but we are in all our offices and Move On, we're receiving every day, every case we receive at least 10 cases, people receiving the eviction letter, we refer them to the housing. And the problem is, if he's lucky, has a little children, or with a person with disability, he might be somehow be got into pre-accommodation. But if the single, even if it's female, he will be humiliated. I mean, 2 months they stay in the street and somebody has to put a picture for them. Oh, sorry, this organization shouldn't take picture, maybe somebody else has to take the picture, and the person is still in the street, doesn't know when the council gonna consider homeless and give him like a temporary place to stay. I mean, when I say female, we saw a case of female. We saw many cases for single people. For example, a person has a medical condition and is back home. When you go here to seek like a medical report from his GP, he need at least 6 weeks to get it. If he doesn't bring that medical condition, the homeless won't consider him like a serious case. He will stay in the street until with the medical condition. So one is like a stick to another one. So that's when you gather all these numbers, become a huge number. Like I think according to these 350%, by next year will be everybody will be homeless like that. And like Janice said, we are not going to build tomorrow houses, and we don't have many options. So actually, like it's horrible.
Okay. Gareth or Jenny, is there anything you think you want to add to the number of evictions that are happening at the moment?
Yeah, I'm always keen to add stuff. So I know that we are seeing these rising numbers because of the pledges from the Prime Minister to cut the asylum backlog, and I think that on the one hand we do agree that the asylum backlog has to be cut because we want people to move out the asylum system so that they can become refugees, so they can go into employment, and they can make a life that they want, and they can have choices. But the pace at what is going at the moment is absolutely ridiculous. I think there was some research by the British Red Cross that across the whole of the UK, 50,000 newly granted refugees were at risk of homelessness, which is an absolutely stark figure. We've seen local authorities in other parts of the UK declare housing emergencies as a response to the number of newly granted refugees which are hitting the streets. I know that Glasgow, Newcastle, Liverpool and Manchester are really struggling at the moment. And yeah, here in Cardiff, I know that in the last month we had 174 referrals for newly granted refugees. And I think for comparison, earlier this year in around April, March, we may have been seeing 30, 40 new referrals. So that's the numbers we are talking about at the moment. And it is putting a lot of stress on our services. And not just our service at Welsh Refugee Council, but all the other organisations that are supporting refugees, not just in Cardiff, but across the rest of Wales and the UK. Thank you.
Well, clearly 28 days is completely ridiculous, but it's a deliberate policy. It used to be 56 days, but it's all part of the UK government's attempt to create a hostile environment for asylum seekers and refugees. So we just have to acknowledge that. But we also need to insist on competent government. I used to work with the prison service in another part of the UK, and I was astonished at the number of people who'd completed their sentence, foreign nationals who were due to be sent back to their country of origin when they completed their sentence. Who knew? Nobody had organised the flight of this person on the day that they had finished their sentence, so they were then kept in prison for another 3 months, because the different branches of government don't work effectively. So nobody should be given the 28 days or the 56 days unless the BPS card, a BRP card, I beg your pardon, is available on that day. This has the two things, left hand and right hand, have to be working together so that the individual is able to prove that yes, they are now a refugee and therefore they come under the system of how we allocate housing on the basis of need. So that is a complete no-no. It is extremely difficult for local authorities who are not being paid to accommodate homeless people to take this overwhelming increasing number of people, simply because the UK government is not at all interested in ensuring that everybody has a decent home. It's just not part of their radar. So we have to start thinking of other ways in which we are going to increase the amount of housing, maybe through cooperative solutions, through organising people who want to help make for a less unequal society, to help build quality homes so that there's an increase in the number of homes that are available. But this is a truly, truly desperate situation. And it's only just over 4 years ago since we had the Liz Truss government, which those of you who are voters in this country will be familiar with, the way in which that completely trashed the economy because she came up with proposals that where the markets took fright at. That hugely increased the interest rates. So a lot of these private landlords who've taken on a house to rent because they think they're going to make money out of it, and they're suddenly faced with massive increases in their mortgage, they're forced to sell. So that has reduced the number of private sector housing that's available, which in any case is not affordable, neither by refugees nor anybody else who's in receipt of universal credit. This is a recipe for not having enough money to heat your home or eat. So this is a completely broken society, and we absolutely have to have a change of UK government.
Okay.
Just to mention something, Andrea, actually, maybe just an example for in some European country, which I was working there before, the asylum, when he be granted, he stay where in the house until he be accommodated in like a new houses. They give him a kind of priority, especially with Kesan. Unless by his choice you want to move to private sectors easily, that will decrease the number of people need the housing, even for everybody, for local people as well. So for example, why one of these, housing company don't like customize 3 or 4 houses to like house the people immediately to there? That will help for integration, will help for these people to settle, to go to study the language, to mix with other people, to find a job, do many things. Because if the person become homeless, and for a long time he doesn't know what to do, are he gonna go to college? Of course not. He gonna go find job? Of course not. But if he's settled in the house, that will ease the integration everywhere, anywhere of Wales or in the UK as well. So that will help. So that should all the government also cooperate with the maybe private sector, with this housing company, to mobilize them and give them awareness about what to do exactly, all together have one goal, to find a solution to decrease the number of the homeless people.
Thank you. So we've started going into the solutions, and I'm going to finish at 11 today because I know that one of our panel members needs to head off. So Gareth, quickly, what solutions in the short term would help newly granted refugees access housing?
Well, I think we've started to see some okay solutions. I wouldn't say they're great solutions, but the UK government unfreezing the local housing allowance, we're announcing that they're going to unfreeze it in April, is a good start, because it means that a few more people, more people will be able to access housing, because the current local housing allowance did not cover, it was never close to covering what actual rents were. I like to hope, I'm not into numbers, but I like to hope that the increase will result in more of those houses being on the market. But yeah, what will help them is removing the barriers that currently exist for them to housing, to enter in housing. If we are seeing that the demands for UK-based guarantors are the biggest issue that is causing homelessness about newly granted refugees, then maybe we should be thinking about if that is something reasonable to ask for, or if it's something that, in essence, ends up discriminating against newly granted refugees or anyone who comes from other places, from abroad. We could also see solutions, perhaps, that would stop refugees becoming homeless in the first place. I really like Saeed's suggestion of keeping people in their NAS accommodation until they are given or to find an alternative. We can think of solutions similar to that. We can think about Welsh Government, in the spirit of Nation of Sanctuary, working with local authorities to provide some sort of bridging accommodation, which will increase that 28-day period. And I know there's challenges associated with that, given that the lack of housing, local authorities struggling and all of that. But if we want to be serious about being a nation of sanctuary, and if we want to be serious about stopping people becoming homeless in the first place, we have to take these we have to be firm, we have to take, important decisions.
Thank you. And this leads me to our final question. So by 2030, Wales is hoping to become an anti-racist nation. Housing is a key element within this. So by 2030, what would housing pathways look like for newly granted refugees? And how would you ensure this becomes sustainable? And I'm going to head over to Jenny first.
Okay, well, that's an extremely challenging aspiration and ambition. I completely support it, but it's very, very challenging, particularly as we don't know what sort of government we'll have in London, which may or may not be concerned about making for a more equal society. We just don't know that. But we clearly need to build an awful lot more social housing, because whilst I welcome the increase in the housing allowance, it isn't sufficient. It's a market. Therefore, private landlords will think, how much can I get away with charging? Now, the Welsh Government has done two important things to regulate the private housing market under the Housing Act that the Senedd has passed. One is that you have to give 2 months' notice before you can increase a tenant's rent. And the second thing is you can only increase the rent once in 12 months. So that's welcome, but it's not going to be the solution. We absolutely have to have a massive house building programme of sustainable housing, which doesn't cost a lot to heat, which doesn't contribute to the climate emergency. And that does require us to use modern methods of construction, prefabricated homes built mainly in a factory, and then you can erect them very, very quickly. We have to have more public land made available to build housing on, but it has to be those that are on good transport links, because we can't just have houses plonked in the middle of nowhere, which means that only people who've got a car can get to work. So that those sort of new developments should be banned in any case. So there's a lot of work we have to do, and 2030 isn't very long off. So there are huge challenges, but we need to do what we can to meet those challenges.
Okay, thank you. And can I just quickly ask, do you think we're on track to meet kind of that aspiration, or do you think there's considerable more work for us to do as a government?
I think that's a $50 million question. I think certainly we've taken evidence in the Equality and Social Justice Committee from lots of stakeholders, and there's generally a very warm welcome for the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. But there's a huge amount more that we have to do, and we have very limited resources. So the things that we need to push on are the things that don't cost lots of money. I mean, good employment policies should always include good anti-racist policies. I mean, you don't need money to do what should be something you should be doing in any case. But nevertheless, there are things that we need to do to train people to understand the importance of all this, and organisations, public bodies that are so tight for money are not going to be able to do new things whilst they're struggling to do what they're responsible for at the moment.
Thank you. And Gareth, obviously you do quite a lot of housing policy and research. So from your perspective, what would housing pathways look like by 2030, specifically for new refugees?
Well, I mean, in my view, I think that a lot of the issues that we have in housing at the moment in Wales is just because the models which we use for housing are just unsustainable and are too driven by profit. And I echo one of the comments that Jenny made. It is about, there is not enough housing, and we should be looking about creating affordable and environmentally sustainable housing. If we are going to be doing it. I mean, that all comes together, and I often say that the solutions that I suggest that will help refugees in terms of housing are there to help everyone. It's not just for refugees, really, and everyone will be benefiting from these. In terms of specifically for refugees, there is a lot of unknowns. Obviously, we know that with some of the policies brought forward by UK government in recent years, we know that that's going to affect refugees. It's going to mean that a lot more refugees are going to have no recourse to public funds. It's going to mean that a lot of their situation are going to be harder. So that's something that we have to look at. But in terms of by 2030, what would I like to see? Well, I would like to see that no refugee ends up becoming homeless after leaving NAS accommodation or Home Office provided accommodation. If we want to be serious about all of these things, that has to be like the bare minimum. It has to mean a case that those pathways are created between communication between the Home Office, while someone is being accommodated by them and supported by them, and then and working with the people, saying, oh, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in a council house? Do you want to live in a private rented accommodation? And working with that person so that they can achieve what they want. And help them to moving where they want. There should be some choice elements in this involved, rather than just living where they can afford or where they are forced to move to. So it's one that that gives people choices, and it means that they do not end up being homeless at any point of this journey. Because as we all know, once you become homeless, a lot of the other outcomes in your life become. It's a worse situation for you in terms of education, employment, health, etc., etc. There's plenty of this research. So, again, if you want to support people, if you want them to make success of having moved to the UK after having fled unimaginable trauma, in a way, it is about making sure that the pathways are put in place from Home Office accommodation to long-term accommodation without having to go through the homelessness system at any point.
Lovely. And then I'm just going to give the final word to Saeed, because he speaks and works with people that have become new refugees on a daily basis. So Saeed, from their perspective, what would housing pathways look like in the future?
My wishes or what they should like?
Yeah.
Actually, there is something very good, like we talk about the increase of the rent. If the government like with a good policy for that, landlord don't increase the rent just suddenly. Some people, they say just landlord send them a letter say, oh, it's increased £300 over the rent. They should accept people like an universal credit, and they minimize the term of condition who's getting private sector. And of course, as we said before, shouldn't person become homeless after being granted, it has to be a guaranteed place for them. And if the government think in the future to build, they might build like a tower, big building is easier. And I'm not mentioning only for refugee. Everybody has to be equal to good access to the houses for an easy way. If you follow the dispersal system, not everybody gonna find a job if he doesn't drive a car, for example. So if I go I live in a far place, it should be for me easy to go where I find a job, like to some company, they ask you, do you drive or not? That's all connect to each other, where are you gonna live or not. So people, they wanna stick in a big city to make sure that the transportation is easy for him. So that's all in the future we should be, they find for all these solutions for these all challenges and be easy for everybody. And of course the refugee, we talk about them because they are most vulnerable group.
Thank you. So I'm going to say thank you very much to the panel today for giving your insight and your knowledge on this complex topic. Chiokanval, and I'm going to pass back to Trevor.
Apparently there are some questions from the guest. You don't need it.
I'm Romy Wood, I'm Seeking Sanctuary Manager at Housing Justice Cymru. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd like to raise the question of perhaps the most marginalised people of all, people seeking sanctuary with no recourse to public funds. So people who, for reasons of a Home Office refusal or complexities in their case, find themselves ineligible for the National Asylum Support System from the Home Office and ineligible for mainstream local authority support or private rental. So across the UK is a disparate group of people who cannot access any accommodation at all. And we can't ignore this group of people in talking about people claiming asylum and refugees. So we run a hosting project of compassionate and pragmatic people who welcome someone into their spare room. But there is always more need than we have hosts. So there are a lot of people in Cardiff who find that they have no shelter at all. And with widening dispersal, there may be people finding themselves outside on the street in other local authorities as well. So what are Welsh Government and local authorities doing to make sure that we don't end up with people left outside, particularly in severe weather, but let's not ignore that these people are on the streets of Wales and also need our help.
Thank you, Romy. So I think we've got two aspects there. We've got short-term NRPF, which is where somebody might be falling through the cracks in the system because if you put in a fresh claim, you can't get access to financial assistance while you wait for your claim to be accepted and you don't have housing. And there isn't currently a Home Office support available. And then there is long-term NRPF. So there are people that might have received a negative decision on their claim, and that can be for a variety of reasons. So it might be that they've not had access to legal support. And for everyone that's in the asylum and refugee sector, we know full well that legal support right across the UK, but specifically in Wales, is at its lowest point yet. So Gareth, do you think you could answer a little bit, possibly around short-term NRPF?
Yes, I will say that whilst it is true that people in NRPF cannot access lots of supports, they can't access benefits, they can't access housing through the normal routes as set through the Housing Wales Act. There is support available. There should be support available for them. I mean, there are provisions within other pieces of legislation, such as the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, which do put some duties on local authorities to support people with no recourse to public funds. I know that Welsh Government have acknowledged that more work has to be done in this, and I know that the recent white paper on ending homelessness through housing legislation does make acknowledgements that their local authorities need better guidance or better support to help people with no recourse to public funds. The fact that they're a small group doesn't mean that there shouldn't be considerations for their support, and I do agree that there is some fantastic work done by charities to support people, but it shouldn't just be charities. There should be some responsibility. These people are extremely vulnerable, and yeah, I think that we should be reinforcing those duties that already exist, as set forward for the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, to ensure that people are supported and they don't end up in absolutely desperate situations.
Thank you. So also what Romy mentioned at the beginning was that Housing Justice, if people didn't hear, is an amazing charity that hosts people normally with short-term NRPF in family housing or in spare homes for a short period of time. And they're always looking for new households or new families to host people. So if people don't know Romy, she's at the back, she's in white. They're always looking for new hosts. They have an amazing support package available to guide people through and to link you up with other hosts so you can really understand the journeys that people have been on and why they do it time and time again. Trevor, is there any more questions?
Shmai Paub, Rob Milligan here from Tai Paub. Oh, yep, I'm going to stand up. Yeah, great stuff. Lovely to see everyone today. My question was for Jenny, but I'm going to try and really work it. So, yeah, well, I do have to say I'd love to invite the panel to comment on. Yeah, so at Tai Paub, we're obviously campaigning for equality in housing in Wales. We're campaigning alongside Shelter Cymru and CIH at the moment for the human right to adequate housing in Wales. And this is based on a UN covenant, the UN Covenant for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, which describes a legal framework, multiple benefits for people struggling against inadequate housing. And that has been signed by our central government in Westminster. We've done a cost-benefit analysis showing £11 billion in benefits for £5 billion in investment. By 2050, we'll be out of the red and into the black by 2030. My question for Jenny was, what are the barriers to Welsh Government enshrining this in law? But I would just invite the panel to comment on the human right to housing in Wales, how that would affect all humans in Wales, regardless of their immigration status. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. So Rob is from Tai Paub, and his question is specifically around the right to housing, it being a fundamental building block to the rest of your life, and the savings that can be made if housing is there for people. Who would like to answer this one?
Yeah, I can comment on that. It's yeah, I agree. I mean, I believe in the right to adequate housing. I think that it's going back to that point I made earlier. It's a lot of the solutions that will be good for refugees will be good for everyone. And I know that that UN report particularly highlights refugees as one of the groups that would benefit the most from the right to adequate housing. So obviously, in full support. I know that I've read the cost-benefit analysis that has been done, and you said that is by 2030 is when we're going to start to see some of the progress. And yeah, I think that ties well with the question we asked earlier about Anti-Racist Nation aims for 2030. Wouldn't it be great if they all went hand in hand?
My question maybe goes back to Rob, is what can we be doing, Rob, to support Tai Paub with that kind of mission to get the right to adequate housing?
As I said, we are campaigning along CIH and Shelter Cymru, but at the same time, you can support us in that campaign in our Back the Bill. You can sign on to that online. There's lots of organisations here that have done that, and if you haven't, you can publicly show that support. Beyond that, next year we'll see a white paper come through the Senedd on this particular subject. So in any way we can have you as organisations, as people with lived experience, feed into that white paper, I'm sure that would be very supportive and support our policymakers to be brave on this one and yeah, improve outcomes for everybody.
Thank you.
Can I just say, I just want to give an example, like maybe it's not really relevant, but when ISIS invade Mosul in Iraq, 1.5 million people flee to my city, though when I was there, I was working with the UN agency. Imagine 1.5 million, not 100, no 1,000, in one day. What the government gonna do is a small city, no capacity, no income, nothing. They open schools, people open houses, the unfinished building, everywhere. Everywhere you see people, asylum, people, refugees, they flee to everywhere. But there was a solution. They immediately, like, for example, build the camps, customize some houses, everything. The government said on television, please decrease the rent, everything. They find a solution. Now when you host a family refugee, they don't have a place to stay in your house here. The council gonna send them a letter. They increase his water bill. They increase like a council tax, everything. So people not gonna host anyone. Maybe it's a small detail, you guys are gonna laugh about it, but this is a serious thing. So there should be government also some policies to mobilize awareness people how to host each other and to help each other and to find a solution, because now the housing is an issue for everybody, not only for refugees, but as you say, the refugees are the most vulnerable group. So there is a solution if we think about, if each of us think about like a point to put it together, to compile it and find a good solution to avoid the increase of the number of homeless people and people to be humiliated. Thank you.
Thank you, Saeed. And there's a gentleman at the front who's been very patient. His fourth row down, wearing a lovely cranberry tie, may I add? Thank you, Trevor.
Good afternoon. You may have covered these issues because I arrived late, so apologies if it has already been covered. With regard to hosting, of course, categories such as people from Hong Kong, Afghanistan, Ukraine, but I don't believe, unless I'm otherwise mistaken, that the kind of system which is operable in Canada, which enables people to, in advance, as it were, say that they are available to host people concerned, is actually the system here. So what do we need to do to tweak legislation? Well, not tweak, that's not the right word, to massively change things, to enable people to provide, to say like they did, but it wasn't easy and very restricted in the 1930s, because you actually had to have, the people had to have the ability to, money-wise, to even be able to have the kindergarten transport children. But what would we need to do to have a thoroughly workable hosting system? And the other thing is with regard to that which is provided by the government, where people are put into houses, asylum seekers, don't we need that to be completely overhauled to stop these, I want to call them voracious landlords who provide substandard accommodation which is not fit for animals, let alone human beings. And this is the accommodation which is provided. What kind of message is that sending to some seekers already psychologically damaged, probably further psychologically, if not physically damaged by the appalling conditions?
Yeah, thank you. Which organisation are you from?
I'm not representing it. I mean, I am on the committee of the United Nations Association, Cardiff.
Lovely, thank you. So there's a couple of things there. We obviously have community sponsorship in the UK, but it's never really grown at scale for a variety of reasons, one of which there's being too complex, too many barriers, and the kind of needing a lot of voluntary support, which is okay for some communities, but not for others. And then Housing Justice, who are at the back here, do hosting on a larger scale. And I would say I will speak briefly for them and then I'll get Romy to come up and answer the question. But essentially, long-term sustainable funding is what organisations like Housing Justice need. Too much of the asylum and refugee sector is on one-year funding for year and year for up to 20 to 30 years at a time, which makes us incredibly unsustainable. So more support and funding on a long-term nature. And then Romy, did you want to add what would help organisations like Housing Justice to scale up with hosting?
Could you speak up a bit?
As I understand it, the only migration scheme which comes directly to hosting is Homes for Ukraine. But there are the community sponsorship schemes which Andrea's referred to. So Homes for Ukraine came with funding to the host, to the sponsor host, and the Ukrainian guests, the displaced people from Ukraine, were eligible to work straight away and to have to claim benefits and so on. So the other types of hosting that go on in the UK, firstly is the sort of hosting that we are most involved with, which is for people with no recourse to public funds. There is almost no funding for those projects, and as Andrea said, it's very often 1 year, 2 years, 3 years if you're very, very lucky. So in order to continue these projects, we are always having to apply for third sector funding. Comic Relief currently fund the project. But our hosts do not get paid. We managed to give their guests from all these different countries a little bit of cash, if you like, for their basic needs, but the hosts don't actually gain. So that's why, you know, these people need to be able to absorb somebody else into the household with our support. There are also other hosting organisations who host somebody newly granted in that bridge period you've talked about, whilst they try to establish their move on accommodation. So different sorts of scheme which are referred to as hosting, but a host might actually be in a very different situation and be working in a different scheme. So it may be that some of those people who have recourse to public funds and the right to work are able perhaps to pay their way to some extent in what is essentially a host household, and that other hosts are able to work with people with no recourse to public funds. So just be aware that the word host is used in different contexts. I hope that answers some of what you're asking.
Lovely. And
I think what will happen, because we did initially get a lot of interest both for Homes for Ukraine and for NRPF hosting from rural communities and from wider across Wales, and we had to focus very much on Cardiff. There's an excellent hosting scheme in Swansea. There's some hosting goes on in Newport and building in Wrexham, but with widening dispersal, I think there will gradually be a call for hosts in other areas as well.
okay, lovely. I think we're going to go into the break now.
The landlords who are being taking advantage of the landlords who are taking advantage of the situation with regard to landlords who are taking advantage of the situation with regard to their government contracts, and yet the government doesn't appear to be interested or that bothered about making sure that the quality of accommodation is fit for human purposes.
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean. What the gentleman is referring to is that when it comes to asylum accommodation, there are these very large UK contracts that are issued around the UK. And in Wales, there is one supplier of the housing that runs the housing contract. They are doing a couple of things, so they do satisfaction surveys. But as you know, and as we know, people still get poor accommodation quite often, as well as the barges and the penalties that we've seen spring up in terms of hosting people in short-term periods of time. But I'm going to have to end it there because we need to stay on focus. Thank you very much. We do have a housing policy and research team at the Welsh Refugee Council, so if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to follow up with us afterwards. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you to all our experts. There are many challenges to accessing safe and secure housing when status has been granted, and we need to see real change to ensure that refugees do not fall through the gaps. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for our break. There's tea and refreshments up there. Okay, thank you. Oh, please be back by 11:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, good.
Should be a speaker in a parliament.
Come down, please. Please feel free to bring your teas and coffee. Thank you. I felt like my original voice was loud enough, but okay.
Oh, thank you.
Also, feel free to sit at the front. Thank you.
Can we have a chat with the royalty staff? I'm doing a project
That's right.
chat about housing access and
You have to lower the mic for me.
I should have done that for me.
So good.
Amazing.
I'm going to see your doctor, right?
It'd be great to sort of link up and also I want to do things. No, I'm kind of new. Amazing. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, it'd be great to. Brilliant.
Do whatever you want. Don't worry about it. Sorry?
Hello.
Hi, Kerry.
Hi.
Yeah, we're going to go back to this
original
format.
Then from there it's Mike and Alia.
Yeah, so green is you have 3 minutes. Orange is 5 minutes. But I swear to
I've just managed to get out and do some acting. I was supposed to be doing acting, but Annie's decided she wants to change it. Yeah, I had to pretend to be like that.
Oh, yeah. I don't think you could do well with that one. Just try to be as mean as you can, you know?
I was looking forward to it.
Really?
We're changing now.
There you go. I'm gonna move up.
Welcome back, everyone. Can we please take your seats so we can proceed? Can we please take our seats? Thank you. No one is paying attention. I would like to welcome on stage Voice Network Ambassador to do housing and homelessness, challenging discrimination, dispelling myths. That will be Anika Rimbo on stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll wait a minute for people to settle down. My name is Annie, and I'll be talking about safety in houses, in accommodation houses for women and children. I am going to ask you to indulge me by shutting your eyes as I speak for the whole speech. So kindly, could you close your eyes and think about your house this morning as you were leaving. Think about, close your eyes. I can see you. Close your eyes, think about your house. Think about the last time you had something broken in your house. That could have been a tap leaking, that could have been a door that's not closing. Think about you calling the plumber or calling whoever it is that you call, or whoever you have a relationship that, fixes things for you. And think that you left your children in the house or a child in the house, and you went to work or you went to whatever you do normally. And I want you to imagine that the first scenario is that you walk out, you close your door, and you leave your child behind. And in due course of the day, somebody comes. Close your eyes, just imagine. And as they are doing that, they have access to a key that can open your house. And as your child is coming to the door to try and open the door, she's literally, walking into a moving door because that person has opened that door and is literally in your hallway. So imagine that. And as the child proceeds to say, "Who are you?" they'll say home office, and the child will say, "My mother is not home." Because you're not there, and they're the only ones at home. Close your eyes and imagine. And this person will use their authority to come into the house and proceed to do whatever it is that they're doing. And you hope that that's the only area they will go that they say they were going to fix. But to your shock and awe, or surprise, they start perambulating around your house, into your bedroom, into your kitchen, into your bathroom, into every area of your house, other than where they're supposed to be. That's scenario one. You can open your eyes. That happens in real life, in accommodations that are provided by the Home Office through their service providers, I should say. The other scenario, I'm going to again ask you to close your eyes again And this time, I want you to think, maybe I'm having a headache, and I went to my room and I slept. Or you went to rest your eyes so that you can feel better, so that you can make your dinner for the family. And in this case, you're the only one who's home. And but since you're asleep, you did not hear it, so you continue sleeping. And somebody opens your door and walks into the house, and they are saying, "Anybody home? Anybody home?" And now they're in your bedroom asking anybody home while you're in bed. And you get startled, and you open your eyes to see somebody in your bedroom asking anybody home. Open your eyes. That scenario acts out in people's houses. And it seems to be okay. It seems that it's okay for you to, what word can I say? Invade my space and walk away and don't care how that scenario has affected me. For me, that is very scary. It is scary when somebody can walk into your house when your children are home without calling, without asking, without any notice, and it's okay. And they will use the word home office to intimidate you. It is not okay for anybody to walk into your room while you're sleeping. Why? Why do they feel the need to do that? And why is it that after that meeting or after that incident, that somebody writes you a text message and asks you, could you please feedback on how our service was? So this is not a scenario I'm talking about that is not happening. It's a scenario that I have a text message I can show you, that I get text messages asking me how was the service that they did. By the way, when that person works and lives and makes a mess, they leave the mess that way. They leave it there. They don't clean up after themselves. So you could be out and there was nobody home, and you come home to rubbish, to pile of whatever the person was doing, and sometimes they just leave it there, and they don't care. So if you can send me a text message that says, how was my service? Why would you not be able to text me a message and say, somebody will be coming along today or tomorrow or the next day? Please be aware of that. Then at least I'm aware. But for me to wake up out of my bed and look up and there's this man saying, anybody home? And they're looking at me, anybody home? And I'm in my bed. It's not right. I will say thank you for listening to me. Thank you for indulging me. And I hope with that information, next time you meet somebody and they say something different, you know different. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. It is important that we are pushing for the small changes the Home Office and housing providers can make to not re-traumatize sanctuary seekers. Housing is a fundamental right that everyone seeking sanctuary should have access to. Having somewhere to live is essential to our integration, but to truly flourish in Wales, we need to see and address wider challenges to integration. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now be doing integration on transport. And the speaker for that was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he's not, so I'll be reading it on his behalf. This is a topic that Voices ambassadors consider to be an important policy that would solve many aspects of integration. Transport. Transport plays a crucial role in the integration of people seeking safety, enabling us to attend legal meetings, medical appointments, language classes, volunteering, education, and developing social links. Without it means being trapped. This is especially worrying given the expansion of dispersal across Wales. New sanctuary seekers will be dangerously isolated. People seeking asylum live off £47.39 a week. This is barely enough for basic food and essential items. We know of experiences where parents or single mothers have had to choose between eating or sending their children to school. This is not something anyone should have to experience in a nation of sanctuary. We thank the Welsh Government for pioneering free transport schemes for people seeking asylum and now refugees. However, the current welcome ticket is due to an end in March 2024, meaning that refugees are once again left in the dark to how they can access transport to integrate in Wales, access education and volunteering opportunities. People seeking asylum have been in the dark the whole year, whilst refugees have been able to access the scheme. We should not be dividing people based on their status. To support the commitment of becoming the first nation of sanctuary, extending the welcome ticket to all sanctuary seekers and embedding the scheme in the Nation of Sanctuary plan is vital. The pioneering free transport pilot for people seeking asylum in Wales kick-started the successful free bus transport campaign in Scotland. This campaign showed that it would not be hugely expensive to expand pre-existing schemes, such as free bus transport for people under 22 and over 60, to include people seeking asylum. In Wales, train travel opens up opportunities for integration, enabling sanctuary seekers to support businesses, access Wales' robust culture, and truly make Wales their home. There wouldn't be money lost in allowing people seeking asylum free train journeys, as without the scheme, they wouldn't be taking them away. We understand conversations are being had around the future of travel schemes, and we would like to emphasize that firstly, the financial costs outweigh the long-term economic benefits, with sanctuary seekers able to contribute to society through volunteering and especially finding jobs. This in turn would improve mental health and reduce pressure on support services. Secondly, there have been some issues with the current schemes. However, working with people with lived experience can help you to avoid this in the future. We thank the Welsh Government and First Cambry for partnering up with the Voices Network to work on some of the issues so far. We hope lived experience groups can also advise you on how to implement these valuable and pioneering schemes next year. The Voices Network would love the support of organizations in raising awareness to this. So we have composed a draft letter asking for free transport for people seeking asylum that we encourage you to read at lunch and share your feedback and support. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Voice Ambassador Funmi Olayin, who would like to share some insights on education maintenance allowance for people seeking. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you once again. So for those of you that came late, I introduced myself earlier. My name is Fumi. I'm going to talk about something that is very dear to my heart. But first of all, I would like to say I attended a sanctuary in politics course in November 2019, and my project was on further education within the asylum system and looking towards College of Sanctuary. It was based on barriers sanctuary seekers face in accessing education, realities of starting college and frustration within the system. And that was because my children faced those challenges. Some of the barriers I highlighted were age, late admittance, no recourse to public fund, inability to access educational maintenance allowance, EMA, uniform transportation, and access to books. But it is fantastic that universities have sanctuary scholarships, and to hear that asylum seekers have recently been added to the eligibility criteria for the free fee waiver for studying 20 credits in higher education. That is good news. However, it is disheartening that we still have to be talking about some of the important issues for younger groups, especially the educational maintenance allowance. I remember last year standing there, because that was where the podium was last year, and I listed out the barriers asylum seekers face in accessing education, and I felt the urgency from people in the room that they will act immediately. But what happened a year after then? Voices ambassadors have also raised this point to the First Minister at the Esterford Festival, at meetings at the Senedd, and online forums. We've raised it with local organizations, UNHCR, and with universities at Refugee Week. We've heard it has been discussed and that there are challenges, but we can't just leave it there. I want to explain why these challenges are not just sufficient reasons for continuing to disrupt a young person's education and future. I also want to show how the benefit would outweigh the barriers, and that finally making progress with EMA will create the nation of sanctuary we've all been envisioning. I would like to reiterate again that we cannot overemphasize the importance of educational maintenance allowance for these young asylum seekers who face a lot of barriers accessing further education. No recourse to public fund poses a major barrier for them. These young adults, they have no other source of income than the £47.39 support they receive from the Home Office. And because they don't have recourse to public fund, they are unable to access the educational maintenance allowance like their friends or their classmates. They see their friends do basic things like go to watch cinema, go for bowling, go out on a date, but they can't because they're asylum seekers. This may lead them to having an inferiority complex because they will assume others are better than them, and others can have access to some things that they cannot. Don't forget that with the £47.39 support they receive from the Home Office, they're expected to feed, to clothe themselves, and also travel costs included in that money. This could be frustrating because the pressure now lies on the parents, on the young adults themselves to find a way around that. They also risk being lured and groomed into gangs or trafficked as they struggle to afford basic needs and compare themselves to their friends who access support such as educational maintenance allowance. This also has a ripple effect on their mental health and their performance in school or integration into the community. I've heard a Welsh government representative say that the challenges of EMA are around budget, as well as how to pay people seeking asylum without affecting their asylum claim. On the topic of budget, I've also heard a member of the Senate say that extending EMA to these young adults shouldn't cost too much, as there are not too many young asylum seekers that would access it. Furthermore, it is clear that EMA could in fact benefit the economy through supporting these young adults to be successful in education, so that once they have the freedom to find work, they won't need to rely on benefits or other services to support them. Another challenge we had was that there were concerns around the EMA payment could affect asylum claim, but I believe if the Welsh government sees supporting these future generations as a major priority, they will look for a way around that and support them to live a quality and balanced life. A good example of this was during COVID, when getting school meals to children was becoming challenging. The Swansea Council came up with a brilliant solution to pay the equivalent of the school meal into the parents' Aspen card for them to buy and cook fresh meals for their children. The Swansea Council was the first local council in the UK to liaise with the Home Office to pay school meal costs into the Aspen card. And it worked well because there was an agreement between the Home Office and the Swansea Council. Why can't the Welsh government do the same with the EMA? For the Welsh government to fully achieve all the goals of the Well-Being of Future Generation Act 2015, taking EMA for these young asylum seekers as a major priority will go a long way to encourage them to fully integrate into the community. I'm planning to work on an EMA video. We'll be very grateful if organizations could help us share it around their network. I'm speaking to you all today as someone with lived experience and as a parent of 2 young adults who had to experience this and had to support my 2 children from 16 years to 19 years, a boy and a girl. They both had different needs and different friends, and I had to manage their expectations. And my son would jokingly say, "Mommy, why do you think so much before you spend £1?" I would just smile, I would look at him and I would tell him, "If you know, but I do that just because you could eat." But they've both passed the age of accessing the EMA, so it's not just about talking about my children, it's about being a voice to those young asylum seekers that may never have the opportunity to tell anyone about that. But they are struggling to access EMA, just like my children did. And we will not stop talking about it until we get the Welsh government to listen to us and take some actions. As we make new commitments through renewing the Nation of Sanctuary Plan, we ask that this small change will have a great impact on education, be taken into consideration. As always, we are here to give our experience and help you design these policies in the best way we can. Don't hesitate to reach out. I was thinking that Minister Jenon will be here because we've actually spoken about this so many times. But, well, we would request a follow-up meeting with her so that we take this further. Thank you for listening. Diokom Bravo.
Continue with education. I'll now like to invite Dr. Mike Chick and lived experience expert Ali Al-Anbaki, who will discuss the power of language.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. Today I want to share with you my journey of learning English as a second language. When I first arrived in the UK, the English language was vast for me, even if I knew the basics. So eager to learn, I joined the ESOL classes at Oasis Charity. These classes were my daily routine, a routine not only brought a structure to my life in a new country, but also rapidly improved my English. And then I have enrolled to Cardiff and Bailey College. So I was fascinated how the language connects people from diverse backgrounds and how increased my ability to communicate with people. So my experience with ESOL at Oasis Charity was great and beneficial, and I felt confident and empowered. When I had the opportunity to enroll in ESOL classes at Cardiff and Bailey College, my journey went in a surprise way. I found myself in a wrong place, in a wrong class, and that was a surprise to me. So I've asked my teacher if I can have a transfer to another class that fits my skills and how I am able to learn quick. So my teacher said, we need to discuss this. And after that, they say no. So I've asked them if there's a fast class for people who can learn quick. But unfortunately, the system of the college and structure made that difficult. So if I start at the very beginning, it would take me 5 years to finish. And this is too long, especially for older students. So if we have a fast track, if we will have a fast class for people who learn quick, that will be grateful. And instead of just spend a long time, 5 years is too long. So from this stage, I would to mention this. From my experience, when I went to Oasis, that was beneficial. I was felt confident and empowered. But when I enrolled to the ESOL classes at Cardiff and Valley College, I was struggling. My classmates were wonderful as they were also struggling with the basics. So from this point, I felt my English not getting better. Even I felt like I'm getting worse. So with my check, we will discuss this, how we can improve that. If there's a fast track for people who would like to learn quickly.
Bore da pawb. Good morning, everyone. For Ali to speak so eloquently in a second language takes my breath away. I think he even deserves another round of applause. As do all speakers speaking in a second or third or fourth language here today. I'll speak only ever so briefly, but before I begin, can I just check something? Is it just English and Welsh that the languages are spoken here today? Are there any other languages? Feel free to shout them out. Arabic, okay, English, Welsh and Arabic. Spanish. Remember these. Kurdish. Farsi. So, okay, apart from Welsh, English, Spanish, Arabic, Kurdish, Somali, and Urdu, is that it? Sorry, and French. Ali, I'm going to ask you to repeat these, okay?
Wow, this is quite difficult.
Is that it? And Bengali, and Dari, and Farsi. Oh my goodness, okay, okay.
For that 10? Surani.
Okay, we're getting into dialects now. The point being, fantastic. We live in a very multilingual, multicultural society. And we need to, I think, acknowledge that and respect that when we're thinking about language education. And just hearing that in this small room we've got more than, 15 languages is fantastic. It's certainly what I hear when I walk around Cardiff every day, is a whole range of languages. This is important because, fortunately, the Welsh Government has a language education for migrants policy. This is interesting because England doesn't, Scotland used to and then ditched it, Northern Ireland doesn't, but Wales has a language education policy. And this language education policy has been going for over 10 years, and recently the Welsh Government put money forward to review that policy, to think, okay, how are we doing with regards to language education for migrants and for people who are seeking sanctuary in Wales? I was very lucky enough to be part of a team that reviewed this policy last year. And what we found through speaking to folks such as Ali, through speaking to college heads, through speaking to learners across Wales was that the language classroom is a really important space for inclusion and for integration. So language, teaching English language, but acknowledging the multilingual nature of our class participants in our society, language education is extremely important. And we think from this review, from talking to everybody, there's a real chance now that the language classroom can be used as this space to promote inclusion, to promote the values of a nation of sanctuary, to allow people to feel that their language is of equal importance to English, while at the same time seeing English as the general vehicle for communication. And so the Welsh Government is taking on board the recommendations of that review, and hopefully some of the recommendations in this report will be able to be implemented. So, for example, proposals such as a fast track for folks to become more proficient, more competent in English were one of the recommendations. And the fact that there are people in government listening to this really is, or helps make Wales stand out, because just a month ago I was at a conference in a university in London amongst language education colleagues based in England, and they were as envious as heck to think that, wait a minute, there are people really in positions of power wondering about how the language classroom can be made more effective. So rather than seeing language and English language as simply another academic subject where you take exams and then the next year you take further exams and so on and so on and so on, really language education can be this tremendous tool. And so hopefully with the review of its language education policy that, I remind you, Wales is the only home nation to have, hopefully we can improve how folks receive and experience language education during their resettlement, during their building of new lives in Wales. If anybody here has experienced English language education or also Welsh language education, because we're a bilingual nation, this makes it even more important for us to acknowledge and appreciate other languages. If anybody does have thoughts or opinions as to how language education can be improved for folks building new lives, please don't be shy and get in touch with me, and I will certainly do what I can to get that message across. My name is Mike Chick, and it's a silly name. There's nobody else called Mike Chick on Google. So if you want to email me and you Google Mike Chick Wales, you'll get my email address easily enough. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali and Mike Check, for discussing the role of language in Thank you, Ali and Mike Check, for discussing the role of language in integration and the recommendations we need to see to improve ASOL provision across Wales. We are now moving on to talk about employment. Our next speaker from the Voices Network is Dr. Niloha Rangel.
What time is it? Is it already afternoon? Good afternoon, Rounder. And buenas tardes. My name is Niloha Rangel. I am a Voices Network ambassador and also a City of Sanctuary ambassador. Let's go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lily, and
You see, you're a Voices Network ambassador.
Thank you, Johanna.
Well, we would like to thank the Refugee Coalition and Voices Network for inviting us to share a couple of considerations about employment. you know a lot about employment, but we wanted to make it a little bit different today. But we would like to remind you that Wales is a nation of sanctuary, and we're dreaming to be the UK's first nation of sanctuary. So let's make it work. So we know that the Senedd has established itself as a key, sanctuary in the Senedd, as a key event for a civil and more compassionate and one of the modern democratic institutions that anything can look like. But it has been, and also has been part of the health of our democracy in Wales. So the Senedd is not the home of an old-fashioned political party debate where this is a place where we can all come together, we can gather, discern, and also learn from each other and from people with lived experience as well. So today we wanted to relate to our own experiences and barriers to accessing employment and touch on some of the opportunities how Wales can benefit from it. So we are gonna do something a little bit more dynamic, just to change it, because, well, you have heard a lot of employment. You might be bored of listening about employment. So today, we've been gathering, asking, surveying people who have been seeking for employment. And one of the considerations, or let's say the worries that came up, were some of them. I will not share all of them because you're gonna hate me, because there are gonna be too many. So, and these, once we gather, when I gathered some of these considerations, I was able to share them with the Mayor of London, some others with United Nations, and I would like to thank John Davis, who's been actively working in terms of employment. Thank you. And, well, let's have a role play.
Right.
So there you are, Lily.
Okay, just imagine I'm a newcomer, I'm a refugee, and I want to apply for a job. I'm not familiar with your system, I don't know anything, just I will ask Niloha to help me, all right? So, Niloha, I would like to apply for this role. Also, I find it's very difficult to answer all questions. And would you consider a cover letter or CV or presentation, video, anything to help me, please?
I'm afraid not. Well, I would like to share considerations for the private and public sector where they should consider other forms of applying for a job. So that can be a CV, that can be a cover letter, because it can be very difficult to fill those forms with the personal specification, but some refugees might have a CV, or maybe they can write a cover letter, or even a video, why not? So this was one of the issues that really concerned people applying for a job. So it's also useful to use accessible and comprehensible language because, as you know, English is our second language.
I heard about interview questions. I don't know what they want to ask me. Can I have these questions in advance?
Well, it would be good in terms of helping reducing stress amongst refugee applicants or asylum seeker applicants, to reduce who may have language barriers and a gap due to their immigration process. So if you share the questions in advance, it would create a bilateral trust between the candidates and the organization. And this will eliminate the risk of not sharing everything you want to. So one of the solutions we proposed to the London Mayor and some other organizations were that the questions could be sent as long as you've been shortlisted for an interview, or could be sent, let's say, 1 day before the interview, 15 minutes after the interview. You could send some questions and maybe ask another questions at the interview. But that was a thing that really concerned the refugees.
The next question is it going to be online or in person?
Well, it's very important to pay for expenses and provide logistical support for participation. So we know that it's always good to answer, do you have an internet connection? Do you have data? Do you want us to top it up? Because some people might be at the contingency accommodation or that period where they are transitioning, where they were in the shared accommodation and then to their definitive place. So it's always good to provide them with vouchers, tokens, and any appreciation. Go on. And do you have IT skills?
Actually, I know something, but I'm not professional.
Well,
so sorry for that.
Well, I'm sorry, I cannot provide any training.
Oh, thank you.
Well, go on.
My question is, if I get a job, will you provide me with tailored induction and development support?
Well, yeah, it's important to provide training, induction, if you are able to employ an expert by experience. So please do not forget to have a clear and honest conversation in terms of development and how they're going to perform at the job. Let's go to this one. Why are you a refugee? Why did you come to this country? Your English is very good, but you have a strong accent. Do you have a car? Can you drive?
Actually, in reality, yes. But it happened to me when I had an interview with NHS in Swansea. After my interview, the lady asked me, when she saw my, experiences, she asked me, so why are you a refugee? And I answered that lady, okay, I'm like other Iranian people, I run away from my government. That's it, for better education, for better life, for studying, for making a life, just simple and basic thing that can I have here. When she asked me, I didn't upset, just I answered her very politely. And then about accent, I said, maybe I can't speak, Swansea accent. Where are you going? I can't say something like that. But I know you, and I respect all accent. And here is a multicultural country of lovely people, nice accent, nice people. So it's better to respect.
Yeah. Well, somebody said this morning that if we want to empower refugees and asylum seekers in this country, we should keep on working against discrimination and anti-racism. So we're going to finish here. So, well, just to wrap up, because they are showing me the red card, in conclusion, we want you to keep on working on the right to work, because it's part of we know it's a devolved power, but we need this in order to give us the opportunity to seek for employment, because you know that employment is so important for integration, social cohesion, and good for the country, And we will not stop until we have a team of an expert team of employment advisors understanding the barriers of working in the UK. We want you to closely work with refugees to develop an achievable plan to get everyone back to work. We need employment preparation, we need workshops, we need training, shadowing, internship opportunities, and also help with our CVs, interview techniques, and provide us with opportunities. And ultimately, we will not stop until you are supporting us, until you help us to find a job that is right for all of us. And instead of the government spending, I think it's, I don't know how many millions, and the Rwanda plan, please, let's campaign to get that money and or just work on preparing and helping people to get back to work, become an asset in this community, and also to just pay taxes and be an active citizen of this society. Well, we would like to share a little bit more, but time is calling. Thank you.
Thank you, Niloha and Lily, for that. I will now like to invite Jane Hart, the Social Minister for Justice, to the stage. Thank you.
Prindown, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your welcome and indeed your invitation to join you today. Really pleased to be here with this sanctuary in the Senedd event. It's always a really important event every year. And it's also just so important that Senedd members and ministers, I can see Vaughan Gethin just coming out to say hello, that we can only spend short periods of time often at events of this kind. But it is so important that we're here and that we're learning and listening, particularly those with the lived experience of seeking sanctuary in Wales. So yes, the voices, I just managed to hear some of the feedback from the voices, your voices on employment. And I know that earlier on today, housing, integration, transport, and key messages, well, my officials are here, so they've just told me they're going to feed everything back to me, because those messages are so important in terms of what we can do as a Welsh Government and how we can make sure that we make a reality of Wales being a nation of sanctuary. I think what unites us all is that common desire to improve the way that we do things. And becoming a nation of sanctuary is the responsibility of everyone in Wales. But we, as a Welsh Government, have to demonstrate leadership on this issue with the willing and crucial support of many partners in this room. And we know that words and deeds matter, and we strive to embed the nation of sanctuary vision in both. And Wales has enjoyed a long history of welcoming refugees, as you all know, and we continue to value and benefit from their skills, entrepreneurial spirit, sharing of culture. We value the contributions which people seeking sanctuary make to our society. And we want people to start their journey of integration from the very first day they arrive here. Our Nation of Sanctuary plan sets out the actions we're undertaking to ensure inequalities experienced by people and communities are reduced, access to opportunities increased, relations between communities and wider society improved. And we are proud of the support which Wales has offered to those seeking sanctuary since our plan was published back in 2019. I want to thank everyone who's played a part in this. In recent years, our local authority partners have undertaken phenomenal work to provide sanctuary to families from Syria, Afghanistan and Ukraine under resettlement schemes, as well as globally through the asylum system. And their work in partnership with us and the Wales Strategic Migration Partnership has been proactive and impressive. This is what we call our Team Wales approach, showing how we can support sanctuary seekers together in all parts of Wales. And of course that includes many of you in the third sector organisations who provide that Team Wales input. And it is those refugee support organisations, large and small, that have been critical in ensuring that sanctuary seekers feel valued as members of the community and that they can access the information and support they need. Your work helps us to know where things are going well or going awry, as well as helping us to design and often deliver interventions to improve things. So we've made good progress so far, but there's still more to do. That's why we recently announced that the Welsh Government's undertaking a refresh of the Nation of Sanctuary Plan, because many things have changed since 2019. We've had 2 new UK government laws, and you will be aware of the one, we'll see what the fate of the one is today, such misconceived and hostile laws. Many other policy and legal changes. We've several new protection-based routes to the UK. We have a cost of living crisis and major impacts on budgets for everyone. But we do have important opportunities and responsibilities too. And I think this is where we need to look at how we can work together and support each other. Thousands of Welsh householders have directly played a part in accommodating sanctuary seekers in their own homes, an amazing contribution to our nation of sanctuary. Millions of pounds are raised from Wales every time a Disasters Emergency Committee appeal is launched, to support refugees displaced in regions across the world. Many Welsh schools, as well as universities and colleges, are joining the sanctuary movement. And many more people know and understand what the Nation of Sanctuary vision is all about. These are just a few positive examples of how people are engaging and playing their part in the Nation of Sanctuary. So what we need to do is build on what's gone well so far and address the challenges sanctuary seekers still face in Wales, many of which you've already raised today, and there'll be key messages, I know, for us, which will summarise all of that. So we look forward to working with you in developing the new plan throughout 2024. We had a visit from the UNHCR UK representative, Vicky Tennant, and I think she met with some of you a few weeks ago. It was very important that the UNHCR did actually support our Nation of Sanctuary plan back in 2019. She knows that we're doing what we can within our powers and responsibilities, but it was good that she came to seek what our progress, account of our progress and where we intend to move forward. So we're publishing our Migrant Integration Wales framework next week on International Migrants Day. And this framework aims to provide a tool for all organisations in Wales to consider how they can contribute towards our understanding of how well migrants and host communities are integrating. And having the data to properly evaluate our work is vital, and this work will set us on the path to achieving that. And this is a long-term piece of work to ensure we can genuinely show that our Nation of Sanctuary vision leads to more positive outcomes for migrants living in Wales. We continue to seek a more compassionate and reasonable approach to migrant integration from the UK government. We oppose proposals which undermine our vision wherever we encounter them, but sadly our warnings are very often ignored. There is another way to design immigration policies that recognises the humanity of those forced to flee war and persecution, which acknowledges and uses the skills and experiences of those arriving to enhance our communities, which seeks to avoid harm rather than create a hostile environment, and we will continue to advocate for it. But for those of you who have come to Wales seeking sanctuary, it is our privilege. It's our privilege to be able to support you. And we know you will repay that kindness through efforts to integrate and contribute through the hard work that you apply when the opportunity is given. We want to give you those opportunities. So your stories are woven into the fabric of Welsh life. Your stories are Welsh stories. In Wales, we welcome and celebrate sanctuary seekers, and we want to continue to work with you to enrich our future. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Jane Hart, for attending and giving us time to listen and show support to sanctuary seekers in Wales. Please can I now invite Niloha to stage.
Well, I would like to say thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Jane Hart, for your messages and a commitment to renew the National Sanctuary Plan. And to the Welsh Government and all the authorities and everyone present here today who have made efforts to welcome people seeking sanctuary. And we are thanking the Welsh Government in the first place for extending the free Wi-Fi asylum accommodation, for creating new funding for mental health in Wales, for partnering with Voices Network and First Cymru to work on the anti-discrimination resources, extending the welcome ticket, supporting live experience through events such as the Sanctuary in the Senedd, having an anti-racist vision, and supporting projects like, in terms of employment, like the one we have at the Word, and all these platforms that you've been supporting. And importantly, the commitment to become a nation of sanctuary and to renew the plan. So in 2024, we would like to see commitments to being a nation of sanctuary. We request that today's messages are taken forward next year and within the National Sanctuary Plan, as people with lived experience, we would like to see this and to understand that it's going to help us the best. In terms of housing, as my colleague Annie said, safety, safeguarding, and dignity are all key issues to sanctuary seekers. To have a home where you feel safe and the basic level of what a sanctuary should be. So it's important to have privacy taken into consideration and to consider women, consider LGBT community, children in accommodation where they have to be safeguarded. So a simple solution would be to train house providers on treating people with dignity and the experience of people seeking safety, to ensure that people in accommodation receive messages before anyone walks into their homes. There should be never a surprise intruder. We need a specific support also for newly granted refugees so that they have access to housing, such as bridging accommodation and removing the barriers that refugees face when they are accessing housing. In terms of transport, people seeking safety struggle to integrate into Wales without the access of transport. Because as all of you know, this creates barriers to education, appointments, volunteering, use of services, and also maintaining social connections. That's so important to integrate. So we thank the government for being the pioneers of the transport scheme. But now refugees have access to transport in Wales, but asylum seekers who live on £47 weekly, they do not. This is not reflective of the nation of sanctuary in Wales. So we thank you again to open the welcome ticket to this group, please. We ask you, sorry. So because everyone is having a kind of trying to make a choice between essential needs. So this is important to extend the ticket. We also ask the organizations here to back up our letter that we have, and we have a draft that you can sign. In terms of education, we need the education maintenance allowance. So this will support the education of people seeking asylum and the huge barriers that they have to face, including having access to life as peers, and which has a big mental effect on mental health. And also, we need more language provision. This is so important for integration. We need to see more investment on this. So instead of looking at challenges, we would like to see how you can benefit young people. In terms of employment, we want you to put every refugee who's actively looking for work to be supported and ultimately accepted into the workforce. So every business and local authority who wants to meaningfully integrate refugees into their communities and workforces, they should be inspired to do so. Refugees are recognized as valuable and important contributors to their local communities and to the UK economy, until we make sure that there is more effective coordination and sharing of best practice among different stakeholders working on the refugee employment, we will not be pleased. So we need to see a real commitment to our key asks. And also, well, now that it has raised the Rwanda plan, we know it's a corrupt country. So if we know that some of the refugees haven't been protected here, have been discriminated, what's left for them at Rwanda? So although this is a devolved power, we would like you to really keep on working on this. Today is the second reading, probably for the weekend we are going to have a law already, but please do not stop advocating, campaigning. We need that money that has been invested in Rwanda to have it here, to create jobs, to help in terms of housing, and so many issues that really worry the refugee community. And we are not, these people come here, asylum seekers, not because of the sake of it, but once they are here, we are not harnessing these people as they should be. The fact is that we have to work on this issue. And just to finish off, I would say something that I really like, that it says, that it reads like this: the real power of society can be seen how it treats its most vulnerable members. Thank you.
Thank you to our Voices ambassadors and lived experience experts for sharing all their experience and insights. We now move on to another lived experience group who have recently joined the politics cause. I welcome the City of Sanctuary ambassadors to the stage.
Aelodau anrhydeddus y Senedd, fy enw I yw Joseph Nyagbo, rwy'n dod o orllewin Affrica yn wreiddiol, a ffoadur ydw I yn y Deyrnas Unedig ers 2018. honorable members of the Senedd. My name is Joseph Nyagbo. I am originally from West Africa, and I have been a refugee in the UK since 2018. Nid oedd yma yn rhinwedd y swydd hon, ond mae'n debyg y bydd rhai o nhwch chi yn fy adnabod fel siaradwr Cymraeg a chadeirydd Gymdeithas yr Iaith Gymraeg. Although I'm not here in that capacity, some of you will probably know me as a Welsh speaker and the chairman of the Welsh Language Society. Mae'n anrhydedd mawr siarad â chi heddi. It's a great honor to speak to you today. Due to time constraints, I am going to continue in English. An individual's sense of belonging to a community develops in tandem with their ability to express their needs, expectations, suggestions, and feeling of being recognized to be able to contribute to the society. This quote from the eminent ethnologist Lucille Gilbert reinforces, if it were still necessary, the vision of the City of Sanctuary movement regarding refugees and asylum seekers in the UK. This vision, imbued with humanity and respect for human dignity, has led the organization to offer an exciting sanctuary in politics course for people who have sought sanctuary as refugees and asylum seekers in the UK. From the 21st to the 23rd of November 2023, in Swansea, 16 participants, including myself, took part in this course. This 3-day residential training was completely free, with all travel, food, and accommodation also provided. This opportunity to learn and share helped us develop our skill and confidence to advocate for ourselves and other people seeking asylum in the UK. Before I go any further into how I feel about the wonderful time we've had together, I'd like to share with you a little information about the course itself. Sanctuary in Politics course is a fun, inspiring, interactive politics course that supports people seeking sanctuary to develop their skills, raise their voice, speak in public, and engage with politicians. The training covers public speaking, confidence, and storytelling skills, an introduction to the UK political system and ways of political engagement, campaigning and advocacy techniques, working with the media to promote stories of sanctuary. The sessions were led by politicians, journalists, campaigners, and other volunteers, all with lived experience in supporting refugees and asylum seekers. The sessions were facilitated by a very supportive and fun team from the City of Sanctuary, UK. Upon completion of the training, every participant has to submit an assignment to demonstrate their learning. I cannot leave this desk without introducing the organization to which we owe this training, the City of Sanctuary UK. City of Sanctuary UK's purpose is to build a culture of hospitality and inclusiveness, primarily for asylum seekers and refugees. This is achieved by coordinating and supporting networks of organizations, of community groups across the UK and Ireland. City of Sanctuary UK was founded by Inderjit Singh Bogal alongside Craig Barnett in Sheffield in 2005. 2 years later, with the support of the Council and over 70 local community organizations, Sheffield became the UK's first ever City of Sanctuary. Since then, hundreds of local councils, Schools, universities, libraries, theaters, and more have been awarded sanctuary status, pledging for creating a culture of solidarity, inclusivity, and welcome. City of Sanctuary UK is proud to support the vision of Wales becoming a nation of sanctuary. This is the 7th Sanctuary in Politics course initiated by City of Sanctuary UK, for which I would like to join my voice with yours and that of all participants to say thank you to City of Sanctuary UK. Through this course, myself and my peers now have this opportunity to have our voices heard in front of this audience on important topics that affect the well-being of people seeking sanctuary in Wales. We will begin by hearing from Laura about a research project she has conducted around well-being. So I hand you over to Laura. Yeah, we're welcoming Laura.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And you know, the most difficult thing here is to speak after Joseph, hearing him speaking Welsh, and then hearing all these powerful stories, and just your mind goes away and you accidentally forget what you wanted to say. But we're grateful to PowerPoint presentation, so I hope I will get back on track now. So yeah, thank you for introducing me, and I'm Laura, and this is my first time on this stage was back in 2019, and it was the 5th year of my tough asylum journey. I was mentally drained, I was exhausted, and I think coming on this stage and meeting so many people and the power of lived experience and power of care and compassion that always fills this room every year is unbelievable and is so strong and it brought me back to life that time. And today I'm happy to be here again and present Mental Health Foundation, where I work now after a long and tough asylum journey. And I'm going to share the research we conducted. And, yeah, okay, so jump in the slide, sorry, thank you. So what do we do in Mental Health Foundation? Our goal is simple, is good mental health for all. We run community and peer programs trying to improve mental health and tackle issues that cause mental health, poor mental health. And we educate, we help people understand and sustain their good mental health, and we advocate for policy changes and conduct the research. So today, if I can move on, yeah, I'm going to speak about the latest research we did on the well-being of people sanctuary in Wales and what well-being means to people in context of forced migration, and what are the positive sides and negative sides that impact people's well-being and what can be done. I promise I try not to make it boring like research, but share the story of people. So, next slide. So, in June 2022 till February 2023, we were privileged to speak to people about the well-being and the things that affect their well-being. We had 4 interviews with people who work with people supporting seeking sanctuary. And of course, we read some research literature, we can't go without that. And we had 4 workshops with people who seek sanctuary in Wales. We had, no way, it can't be. So I can jump quickly, it will be published in January and you can have a read. But if we can quickly then move the slides. Yes, so why we choose the well-being? Because as our participants said, is the main thing is the building tool is the main building tool for rebuilding the life. So you ruined everything. I was wondering, I don't mind 5 minutes, but not 2. Okay, we'll speak to you after. So can you tell me the last sentence I said now so I find my way back? Well done. Thanks God, you're not falling asleep yet. So yeah, as a well-being, the most important thing for rebuilding the life. One of our participants said, you need to be really strong to rebuild your new life here. If you lost your well-being during your asylum process, you might lose your future as well. So what does the well-being mean to people who seek sanctuary? You see 6 petals of the flower, and one of them is essentials, and home, food, and support with health, which Home Office is trying somehow to provide for people. But what about other five petals? About physical, about safety, about forgetting the past, about finding belonging, and then being busy, being valued, and restoring your life. So all these basic needs are very important for the well-being of people, but however, they are not met. So, and a quick story of 25 people who took part in our research, who are looking safety here in Wales, next to you and me. Imagine one of them, they arrived to a safe place, left their home behind, left their family and friends behind. But safety is not what it seemed for them to be. They find themselves in the darkness, in another darkness, in limbo. The only certainty at this point of their journey is uncertainty. This turns into weeks, years, and you will feel like in prison. You can just see the words of what people said. You're stuck in the prison. You don't have any freedom to work, study. You cannot choose where you live. And the system stripped you of your dignity, agency, and ability to change your future. You are in between. And this state of being in between, the in-betweenness, affects other parts of your life. You are in the new place, surrounded by unfamiliar faces, in the ocean of strangers, and you struggle to form new connections because of past trauma you've been through. And you cannot connect with your family because of shame and guilt that is running through your head because of you're not able to help them. And you feel longing and you feel guilt. And you can't say sometimes goodbye to the people you love who passed away. And the loneliness becomes your reality. And that loneliness grows sharper and becomes more painful because of language barriers we heard about today. And for people seeking sanctuary, language is not just the words. This is the key to a new door, the key to the new home, the key to new connection, to new community, and to the new identity. And without language, you feel lost and you feel trapped. Language like a huge wall that is blocking you from your new life. However, even with the language provided, language learning opportunities provided in the country, people spoke about trauma and how trauma affects the learning language. Then, while Wales is blessed with scenery and the places to go and support yourself and your well-being, people speak a lot about not able to travel and making hard choices between food and the bus ticket. And this makes you stuck in that poverty, makes you feel more helpless, and you can't reach any places where you can improve your well-being. And the journey of seeking sanctuary becomes not only about finding physical safety, it's a fight for recognition, a fight for your dignity, and fight for your place to belong. And thankfully, there were good things people spoke about in our workshops, and a lot of good feedback we heard about volunteering and the community engagement. And for people, volunteering becomes not just simple activities or spending time, is becoming an opportunity to find the place you belong, the place where your voice matters and you feel valued and understood. You can show your skills and develop new skills. Find your purpose in life. yeah, this is what people said about volunteering and charities. And, yeah. And another good point, people spoke about their charities and peer support. And this is where people find their new families and they find comfort and where they find guidance and something they've been missing since leaving home. Yeah. And coming back to the topic of transport, although there are a lot of recreational opportunities where you can find a brief escape from the reality, to disconnect from your trauma and disconnect from your accommodation that reminds you about your immigration status and offer you a breath of fresh air, it becomes almost impossible to reach those places due to the cost of public transport. And in this complex journey, what do people ask for? Everyone can be a part of it. This is a collaborative job and everyone can do small contribution to help. And so the voices of people who took part in our research, these are their voices. People ask, and Mental Health Foundation asks as well, for improving mental health support, making it more targeted, considering the unique needs of people, especially those who are waiting for their decision, building community connection, promote the narratives and helping people show their skills, show their talents, show their resilience, not showing them like victims. Then providing access to transport, making it affordable and accessible, is reducing rates or discounting ticket and bus passes, and giving more volunteering opportunities to people, extending them from only volunteering in charity organization to volunteering where people can develop their skills, and tailoring language support to people need. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Laura and her research project. My peers will now introduce you to the chosen key topics that affect the well-being of people seeking sanctuary. They will deliver short speeches on these topics and invite you to explore the topics further through discussions over the lunch. I will now hand you over to Tolulope.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Good afternoon, honorable members of the Senate, distinguished guests, fellow sanctuary seekers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the privilege of being able to share my journey of healing with you. I'll start with a proverb. A merry heart doeth good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bone. My name is Tolulope Olale, a sanctuary seeker. I was diagnosed with severe depression, PTSD, disassociation, significant memory loss, anxiety, and severe panic attack. I am a certified barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of my country, an international chartered secretary and administrator, an international chartered arbitrator with a master's degree in international commercial and maritime law from Swansea University. I had a successful business, but fear for my life made me shut down to slide into obscurity. It was pure torture. As I gradually lost the zeal for life, I fell safe sleeping as I sunk into deep depression. I depleted in weight and went from a size 12 to a small 6. I threw valuables away, I cut my hair. I knew I needed help, but it was not accessible. As a Christian, I started praying hard as I realized this is the one thing I could do. I prayed 8 times a day. I noticed I slowly gained weight. I became a full-size 6. I knew to be safe, free, and able to live a normal life again, I needed to leave my country. This led me to the UK to seek sanctuary. I claimed asylum, it was declined, but I didn't get a response from the Home Office to allow me to appeal their decision until I was arrested and detained. I was detained for 59 days, which aggravated my mental health, as I developed severe panic attack there. I started therapy and will continue to work hard with my amazing therapist and health specialists as I unlearn trauma, embracing healing and peace. I'm not there yet, but I'm healing, evolving as I become. Almost a year ago in Swansea, I led my glorious team of sanctuary seekers to present the first of its kind Unity in Diversity's music and fashion festival themed The Rainbow of Hope. It was a perfect success, and the right worshipful, the mayor and mayoress of the City and Council of Swansea, Mike Day, graced our event. I believe we all had a wonderful time, and that is progress. Fellow sanctuary seekers, do not allow shame, fear, or both hold you back from healing and peace. It is courageous and noble to receive the support available. Don't bury your treasures under rubble of trauma. Unlearn trauma to fully manifest. Honorable members of Senedd, a huge thank you for your unwavering support so far. Please do more. I ask that you release a little more funding towards well-being to help people like me become all we can to benefit our community. I appreciate that funds may be lean, but I'm asking that you prioritize your support for sanctuary seekers' mental health. It is crucial. More funding means more counselors can be trained and employed, less waiting time, easy access to the service, healthy, equipped, and productive people. We can all work together to make Wales a healthy and peaceful nation of sanctuary in truth. I'll end with this. A heart of peace gives life to the body. I'll be available over lunch if you desire to know more. I will now hand over to Patty. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Talaloop. And well, dear honorables and members of the Welsh Parliament, good afternoon. My name is Patty Rodriguez. I am a refugee from El Salvador. And today I will be sharing some stories about the housing issues that refugees go through and how this affects the general well-being. We're talking about mental health, physical health in general. As we all know, the fact of having a roof over our heads, it's a universal human right. If this issue isn't addressed properly, this universal human right can be seen as a violated or broken, which is really serious, right? Let me start with Gustavo's case. He's also a refugee from El Salvador. He's living in Swansea in a hotel together with his family, his wife and 2 little children, 4 and 2 years old. He told me that at this hotel, there are no cooking facilities, laundry room, or recreational areas for the children. On top of that, as I said before, he's sharing this room. It's a 2 double beds, a small room with his wife and children. He said that his wife is constantly sick, children don't have enough space to play and behave as the children they are. So, and besides that, he's constantly facing like terrible migraines episodes due to the pressure of living in such a small place. They have been there for 5 months, which I consider is a really long time for a big family like that, living in a short room. Next is Mario's case. He is a refugee too, from El Salvador, living with his wife, Elizabeth. They both share a small hotel room. They have basically been forced to eat unhealthy food at a McDonald's facility around the hotel because it is the only place close by them, as the hotel is located at the outskirts of the town. They told me that sometimes they get really sick stomachs, headaches, and depressions. And they have been there for 4 months too. As you can see, it's a really small place to live. And then, my own case, I am living in a hotel room as well, unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, because I know that there are a lot of people like not having a place to live. So once I received my eviction letter, my ex-manager started to be so pushy on me and said that she was gonna take the keys out of me and said that we don't have like more support, right? So I went to the council housing options and exposed my situation, but they kept on saying that they didn't have anything available at that time. So after 1 week of overstaying in the home office house, I was placed in this hotel as an emergency accommodation. After 1 day of living there, I got a really terrible allergy all over my skin due to the lack of cleaning in the hotel. It was, guys, definitely was really terrible. I had to run to the hospital to get proper medication because, you know, I really needed to get rid of the rash. And again, as in the previous cases that I mentioned you guys before, there are no laundry or cooking facilities at this hotel either. So why am I sharing these stories? Well, it is because it is a must to introduce into law the right to adequate housing. It is really painful and distressing to see refugees, and especially young children, like the kids I mentioned you before, right, that were 2 and 4 years old, go through these challenges. They are really challenging accommodations for real. We refugees had to sadly leave our countries and seeking for sanctuary in the UK. And we have been through really shocking experiences, right? So I consider that it's really important that the government could introduce a legislation to eliminate or at least reduce this type of accommodations. And besides, that open and easier access to private rent sectors for the low-income refugees, who most of the time find it difficult to find a job. Also regulate deposits, credit checks, several months rent in advance, guarantors, minimum income checks, and professional owner requirement. Just got it since a long time ago, so I'm gonna leave it here. But just to add, the government should also focus on making the refugees' integration to society with ease, okay? So I'm gonna be more than happy to talk about these issues over lunch. I'm gonna hand it over to Abbas and Aj. They will talk about transportation. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon with all protocols
observed.
Thank you, Betty, for your wonderful presentation in the housing problem for the asylum seeker and the refugees. My name is Abbas. I am an asylum living in Cardiff. I came here today by a bus. It cost me £4.40, taken from my NAS weekly support, which is £47.37. I am here today to talk about the need for the free transport for the asylum seeker in Wales.
My name is Achille. I am a refugee living in Swansea. I would like to appreciate the Senedd and the Welsh government for their remarkable support for all the refugees in Wales.
On behalf of all the asylum seekers in Wales, I would like to thank the members of Senedd and the Welsh government for the 3 months pilot scheme, which starts from January 22 till 31/22, of a free bus and trains for asylum seekers in Wales. It was an amazing project for me and all the asylums. We hope its outcomes would be shared with the public.
My thanks to the Welsh government for the introduction of 2-year project, March 2022 to March 24, of free bus scheme for refugees. It helped lots of refugees, but there are many challenges faced while accessing it.
What are the problems?
Some bus drivers do racially discriminate refugees. They refuse access to bus, verbally abuse, and make hate statements against refugees when they are shown BRP cards.
Scheme, I am wondering why they never includes asylum seeker in this wonderful scheme.
I wish the asylum seekers were considered. You could use the free bus scheme to go to anywhere you want in your city in Wales.
This is amazing. Do you know why the Welsh government don't consider the asylum seeker in the scheme? Where the free bus project help us as asylum to go to East classes, visit solicitors and seeking immigration advice. And it would be also help address mental health issues among asylum seekers through visiting friends, going to places like a museum, valleys, beaches, parks, communities, and going to their volunteer workplace. In fact, it would be even encourage asylum seeker in an early integration into local community.
I totally agree, and with only £47 per week support for asylum seekers, it is impossible for them to meet travel costs every day to go to ESOL classes.
Thank you for listening. I now call open Ms. Wala to make her presentation about ESOL.
Thank you very much, Abbas and Akil. Hello, everyone. It's Walat Muma. Honourable members of the Senedd, I extend my gratitude for the opportunity to address you today, drawing upon my experiences as a refugee and an English language instructor who has worked closely with various refugees. Today, I bring to your attention a matter close to my heart, one that sheds light on the resilience and determination of a specific group of learners in our community. As you're aware, refugees and asylum seekers undertake the challenging journey of learning English as a second language, driven by the desire to better integrate into our community, secure employment, and contribute to the prosperity of our nation. Among these learners of English, there exists a distinct group referred to as LESLA learners. These are adults with low literacy skills in their first language or who are courageously learning to read and write for the first time ever in their lives in a new language. What sets LESLA learners apart is their unique struggles, a subgroup among ESOL students who require additional support and a structured approach, one that goes beyond standard ESOL practices. During my time at Cardiff and Vale College as a learning and skills coach, I was involved in a project that offered tailored support to LESLA learners. I provided one-to-one support to LESLA learners who were initially exempt from the standard 6-week cap for support sessions. Although I had to conclude my role upon returning to university to do my master's and PhD, I'm pleased to report that LESLA Learners Project continues internally, albeit on minimal hours. Unfortunately, due to a shortage of coaching staff, Lesla learners are currently constrained by a 6-week cap for support sessions, leading to a considerable number of them being placed on a waiting list to receive one-to-one support. So my asks for the honourable members of the Senedd today are threefold. First, I earnestly seek funding to expand the recruitment of learning and skills coaches at Cardiff and Vale College. This strategic investment is crucial, not only to address the challenges posed by the waiting list, but also to extend essential one-to-one support beyond the current 6-week limitation for Lesla learners. Secondly, I urge the Assembly to actively explore and support training opportunities for ESOL instructors dealing with Lesla learners. While many instructors diligently employ various strategies, some are still struggling to find classroom practices that effectively meet the needs of Lesla learners. Thirdly, I encourage this esteemed Assembly to lead the way in sharing our success by motivating other colleges across Wales to adopt similar initiatives. The Lesla project at Cardiff and Vale College stands as a bright example, demonstrating the positive outcomes achievable when there is a targeted support for this unique group of learners. This collaborative effort has the potential to make a lasting impact, promoting inclusivity and empowerment throughout the educational landscape of Wales. In conclusion, by supporting projects like the one at Cardiff and Vale College, we're not merely investing in education, we are investing in the empowerment of individuals who, despite facing significant challenges, aspire to contribute meaningfully to our community and society at large. I thank you for your time, concentration, and dedication to making Wales a beacon of inclusivity and sanctuary, and I invite you to come and talk to me over lunch. Thank you.
Honorable members of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Ta Martha Ako, and I was an asylum seeker until a few days ago. It is an honor and a rare privilege for me to add my voice to the voices of millions petitioning for a lift of the ban on the right to work for asylum seekers in the UK. It is incredible that the UK, which is globally revered as a respecter of human rights and the rule of law, could institute such a ban. Worth noting is the fact that this restrictive policy is against international standards on human rights to work. It is also against the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, ratified by the UK in 1976, and the 1951 Refugee Convention. The UK government's acclaimed fear of creating a pull factor by making the UK more attractive for asylum seekers is clearly unfounded. These constraints have no bearing, as there is no long-term correlation found between labor market access and destination choice for asylum seekers. On the contrary, lifting the ban will benefit the UK of a whopping £333 million each year, increase tax revenue, increase GDP, reduce government expenditure, increase workforce, and more net gains. It is worth noting that a number of refugee organizations, faith groups, trade unions, think tanks are for instant policy change. On the 21st of October 2020, 180,000 signed petitions were presented to the Home Office for a lift on the ban. In March 2020, YouGov polling found that 81% of the population supports the right to work. This awkward policy is very unfair, wasteful, promotes illegal work, exploitation, laziness, crime, overdependence, waste of skills and talents, and is against inclusion and participation. As someone with lived experience for 2 years, I have been psychologically chained and frozen, forced into aggravated subsistence poverty, and my skills rendered innate as a doctor in psychology, living in a country with a shortage of psychologists as per the UK government's restrictive shortage occupation list. Like many other specialists and professionals seeking asylum, I have been grounded, rendered beggarly, dependent on hand-me-down, stripped of my dignity, and limited to a derisory level of support. My vulnerability exploited and my human rights abused. I have been impeded from integrating to the system, unable to meet the basic needs of my children, and put at the same level of dependency as my children. Like many other asylum seekers, it is very wrenching to explain that for 2 years, I have not been able to buy a brand new dress for myself and for my children. It is glaring that this ban is very harmful, irrational, and against the Welsh government's person-centered approach, which supports holistic integration of asylum seekers. My ask is a right to work from day one. There is an urgent need for a paradigm shift, and that will help the UK meet international human rights laws and no longer be considered a continental outlier. I understand that the ban on right to work is a UK-wide policy, but I implore you as members of the Senate to do all you can to ensure that people seeking asylum should be allowed to work. The success of this campaign depends on getting more support from our MPs, as in the past, to call and vote for reforms. Aware of the limitations of the Welsh government, it would be great if your voice is added to this campaign for an urgent policy change. This will act as a catalyst for getting other MPs involved. Thank you, Welsh government, for all you do on a daily basis to put smiles on the wrinkled faces of asylum seekers in Wales. I will be happy to talk further about this over lunch as we look for lasting solutions. For now, I'll hand it over to Fru.
Good afternoon. I think it's always very difficult to speak last after you've heard some really good speeches from some incredible persons. Good afternoon, honorable members of the Welsh Senate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ngang Fru Delvis. I am from the English-speaking minority of Cameroon. It is a singular honor for me to stand before this illustrious house to speak on behalf of forcefully displaced people from the most neglected humanitarian crisis in the world. I will start by congratulating the Welsh government and people for their exceptional leadership and commitment to become a nation of sanctuary for refugees, asylum seekers, and other vulnerable people. In a world full of dehumanizing rhetoric and discriminatory practice against people fleeing persecution, you have reason to stand as a shining example of compassion, empathy, and solidarity. The implementation of the refugee and asylum seeker plan is a testament to your unwavering dedication to these ideals. As Jane Hurd, Minister and Chief Whip, once stated, this plan is a major milestone on a longer journey towards becoming a true nation of sanctuary. I strongly believe that the journey she describes requires not only a commitment to addressing the immediate needs of refugees and asylum seekers, but also a resolute determination to tackle the root causes of forced displacement. Calling for a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza was a compelling illustration of your commitment to address the principal driver of forced migration, which is war. However, speaking out only on one humanitarian crisis at a time when several hotbeds of mass atrocities in the world, at a time when there are several hotbeds of mass atrocities in the world, the Welsh Senate may unintentionally be contributing to the selective indignation prevalent in the global protest movement. This selective attention impairs public awareness of other humanitarian crises with similar or greater incidents of atrocities. This creates a hierarchy of suffering and promotes a narrative where certain highly mediatized victims are deemed worthy than others. In places like the northwest and southwest region of Cameroon, South Sudan, Burkina Faso, DRC Congo, Colombia, Venezuela, and parts of Nigeria, among others, atrocious crimes are being committed by state and non-state armed groups. In the English-speaking minority regions of Cameroon, Matangum, a 5-month-old baby, was shot 9 times in her head while she was sleeping. In the Abia region of South Sudan, a 16-year-old boy about to start his life, his name is Kiding, was brutally assassinated by state-sponsored militia. These goring tales are commonplace across these countries, but unlike others from countries of geopolitical importance, their stories are deemed unworthy of global collective outrage. Most regrettably, their claims are systematically disparaged when they seek asylum in the UK. I urge, and posterity beckons, the World Senedd to be the voice of this marginalized group. To this end, these are my key asks. A dedicated committee should be established within the World Senedd to focus on neglected humanitarian crises in the world. The World Senedd should advocate for a streamlined asylum process for claimants from this neglected humanitarian crisis. The World Senedd should collaborate with international partners to facilitate dialogue between the warring parties in this region. Permit me extend our sincere gratitude to the esteemed members of this House for allowing to have our voices heard. On behalf of the participants in the Sanctuary in Politics, I'd invite you to continue exploring the various topics and propositions over lunch. Diolch and Vawe.
I would like to thank all our lived experience speakers for sharing their personal experiences and insights to raise awareness to us all. Together we can create a nation of sanctuary. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so for now, there will be no more speeches. But I would like to leave you guys with this, that those who are afraid of life learn to love. Those who love life fear grief and learn how to cope with it. That's all for today. Lunch is served upstairs. Thank you very much.